Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this morning's Zoom webinar presented by the Chamber of Commerce for Greater Moncton. The title of today's webinar is The What and How of Federal Assistance to Business and Their Workers. My name is John Wishart. I'm the CEO of the Chamber, and I'll be the moderator for today's presentation. Bonjour à tous. Bienvenue au webinaire Zoom de ce matin présenté par la Chambre de commerce pour le Grand Moncton. Le titre du webinaire d'aujourd'hui est Les quoi et les comment de l'aide fédérale aux entreprises. Je m'appelle John Wishart, je suis le PDG de la Chambre et je serai le modérateur de la présentation aujourd'hui. We're very pleased to have with us two people today who will walk us through the what and the how of that federal assistance announced so far. Of course, everyone knows Ginette Petitpas Taylor. Ginette is the MP for Moncton, Riverview, and Dieppe. And Chantal Lepage is a Citizen Services Specialist with Service Canada. So thank you very much, Ginette and Chantal, for agreeing to be with us today. Merci beaucoup, Ginette et Chantal, d'avoir accepté d'être avec nous aujourd'hui. For those of you who are new to the Zoom platform, it combines both video and audio functionality, but we are muting and asking you to mute all of your microphones, with the exception of our two presenters and myself. As you can imagine, it could get a bit chaotic with close to 100 people trying to speak all at the same time. Pour ceux d'être vous qui débutent sur la plateforme Zoom, il combine à la fois des fonctionnalités vidéo et audio, mais nous allons couper tous les microphones à l'exception de celui de nos deux présentateurs et de mien. Comme vous pouvez l'imaginer, cela pourrait devenir un peu chaotique avec près de 100 personnes en ligne essayant de parler en même temps. So here's how today's webinar will proceed. Voici donc comment se déroulera le webinaire d'aujourd'hui. After I finish speaking here in the introduction, Ginette and then Chantal will each give about a 10 to 15 minute presentation, and that will be followed by a Q&A of those of you who are on the call. But rather than speaking through your microphone, we're going to ask you to use the chat function, which is at the bottom of your screen, to type your question. You can pose your question at any time during the session, and I'll keep track of them and try my best to ask as many as possible as time allows. So with that, I will give the virtual floor over to Ginette to start us off. Donc voilà pour l'introduction. Je donne la parole virtuelle à Ginette pour commencer. Ginette?
Merci beaucoup, John. Premièrement, à titre de député pour la circonscription de Moncton, Riverview et Dieppe, ça vraiment me fait un plaisir d'être ici parmi vous pour partager avec vous un peu d'informations à propos des efforts que le gouvernement fédéral est en train de faire. I also want to take a moment to thank John and Xavier and everyone at the Chamber for organizing this event. Prior to being a politician, I was a frontline social worker and dealt in crisis response on a regular basis. And one thing that I learned very early on, the more information that we can share with people, the easier it is for them to digest and to kind of process and to be able to help them gain effective control of the situation. So we certainly recognize that this situation is very fluid at this time, and our government, your government, is working hard in order to put together a response. So perhaps just to give us a bit of a snapshot as to where things are at with respect to COVID-19, as of last evening, I spoke to the public health officials of Canada. We presently have in Canada 2,648 confirmed cases of COVID-19 and 25 deaths as a result of it. All provinces and territories have positive cases, except in the area of Nunavut is the only territory that we don't have any confirmed cases at this time. I think we all know we have all been affected by COVID-19 in one way or another. And for those that say that they haven't been impacted, there's certainly a problem there. Because I know that over the past week, I've been speaking to businesses and constituents, and I'm hearing their anxiety, the fear, and the desperation in their voices. We know that businesses are closing, some are shutting down, slowing down, some workers are being sent home, and many people aren't getting paid. And again, as a result, we know that there's a lot of fear and anxiety out there. So your government really has two priorities at this point in time. The number one priority, first and foremost, is to make sure that we protect the health and safety of all Canadians. And our Prime Minister and our public health officials have made it very clear that we all have a role to play when it comes to fighting COVID-19. And when we ask people to stay home and to physical distance themselves from others, we need to all do that. On a regular basis, I have people that are asking me, when are these restrictions going to be lifted and how long they're going to be in place? We don't have a crystal ball. We don't know how long. But what I can say, the more compliant that we are with the public health messages that are given, the quicker that we're going to be able to resume life being back to normal. But that is going to take some time. So the other priority as well is making sure that Canadians have access to economic measures to help them through this very, very difficult time. We are asking Canadians to stay home. We're asking them to limit their business, but we also have to make sure that Canadians have money to put food on their table and to keep their lights on and to have a roof over their head. So last week, our Finance Minister, Bill Morneau, and also the Prime Minister announced an $82 billion economic response plan in order to help Canadians and to help small and medium-sized business owners. I want to stress to everyone that this is the first phase of this because we know a lot of more work needs to be done. But today I wanted to at least give you folks a snapshot of what this $82 billion plan looks like. And I like to kind of say it's in two buckets. The first bucket is $27 billion in direct support to Canadians. And the other bucket is $55 billion in tax deferral measures in order to ensure that we have liquidity left, more liquidity in our systems. So first of all, to give you a snapshot with respect to the direct services that we're putting in place for Canadians, we're introducing what we call an emergency care and an emergency support benefit program. Basically, we recognize that in Canada, we have about 5.5 million Canadians that don't qualify for EI benefits. And we want to make sure that everyone is going to have access to some funds to help them for the short term here. Again, when it comes to these emergency care benefits, they're up to 15 weeks of benefits. The payment would be $900 bi-weekly. The program would be administered by CRA. And once again, these benefits are put in place to cover people that don't qualify for your traditional EI benefits, your traditional EI sick benefits, and the list goes on. So workers that have been asked to go home because of COVID-19, people that are self-employed that don't qualify for EI, workers that have to take time off work, perhaps to take care of a family member or a loved one, or once again, perhaps parents that need to stay home because of childcare services that have been closed and that the schools are closed. So to put together these programs, I also want to stress that we wanted to make sure that we used almost existing programs that were available. For us to start and creating new programs and creating more red tape, it's going to be too complicated. So to get money out to Canadians as fast as possible, we're really trying to use pre-existing programs that are already out there. So when it comes to these emergency care benefits and emergency support benefits, we want to make sure that the application process is easy and that people will be able to navigate the system quickly because we want to get money in their pockets as soon as possible. The application process for these benefits will start in April of 2020, so just next week. And once again, we want to make sure that the application process is as simple as possible. So 3 ways that people will be able to apply for these benefits. There's basically 3 channels that people will be able to utilize. They'll either be able to apply for these services through accessing their CRA My Account secure portal. The second option would be by accessing it through their secure My Service Canada account. And thirdly, for those who don't have access to the internet, we've put in place a toll-free number that will be equipped with an automated application process. Now, we are really going to encourage people to go through the online process because it will be the quicker way to move forward. But again, we want to make sure that everyone has access to the tools that they need to make application. The other thing as well, to make things more simply, we want to also make sure that if people qualify, they'll simply have to check off the boxes and attest that the information they're providing us is accurate. And finally, there will be no need to provide medical documents or medical certificates. Once again, we want to make sure that our health system is dealing with the emergencies, and we don't want people to have to go see their doctors for medical certificates. So again, we'll be moving forward that we won't need that. Other measures that we are also putting in place for low and modest income families that collect the GIS tax credit, or the GST check, as many people refer to it here. We are going to be providing a one-time special top-up in early May. So the average Canadian who receives the GIS check for a single person will be receiving close to $400 for a single payment on their May payment. And for couples, on average, they would be receiving approximately $600 in funds. Once again, we wanted to use programs that were pre-existing so we could get money to people quickly, and that was one way that we were able to do so. We are also moving forward with a one-time top-up of the Canada Child Benefit Program, and we'll be providing an additional $300 per child for the May payment. So once again, if people are receiving the Canada Child Benefit, for their May payment, they will be receiving a top-up of $300 per child. So if I look at a single family, a single parent with 2 kids, if they receive the GST credit and also the Canada Child Benefit, they should be receiving on average $1,500 additional in payments in May. The other initiative that we're putting in place as well, with Bill Morneau having been working with the banks quite a bit, is putting in place a mortgage deferral option program for people for up to 6 months. We've heard that a lot of people are contacting their banks to process their applications. And once again, we've really asked the banks to be flexible and to make sure that they're providing quality services to their customers. We're also putting in place a 6-month deferral program for student loans, the federal student loans, and that will be interest-free. I also want to add that for student loans, there's no phone call, no registration needs to be made. The deferral program will start immediately for everyone. And then from there, they'll be starting up after a 6 months period of time, if that is the case. For seniors as well, we've reduced the requirement for the minimum withdrawal of the Registered Retirement Income Fund, so for the RIFs, by 25%. We realize that the stock market has taken quite a hit, and we certainly don't want to penalize seniors. Therefore, we're moving forward with the reduced requirement of withdrawals of their RIFs by 25%. A few other measures that we've put in place when it comes to tax returns. The deadline has been moved to June 1st to submit your income tax. And also, if people owe money to the government to pay back that amount, that date has also been deferred to August 31st of this year. Additionally to that as well, we certainly recognize that there's some not-for-profit agencies that are going through some difficult times as well, and that additional services are going to be needed. Therefore, we are moving forward with providing $157 million to provide additional funding to shelters. With respect to them staying open, many of them are going to have to purchase more beds, or to practice social distancing, they may have to purchase dividers and other equipments. So additional funding will be available there. Also, we recognize that when it comes to domestic violence related issues, that are shelters for women and children will more than likely be at maximum capacity as well during these stressful times. So additional financial support we provided to those agencies to make sure that they can continue their operations. The other part that I wanted to talk about, the other bucket of money that we're putting forward as well, is providing, again, assistance to small and medium-sized businesses. The role of financial institutions and our big banks and our credit agencies, they play a very important role in moving forward. And Bill Morneau has been in constant communication with them and has told them that we are expecting flexibility in the way that they can help their customers. We expect that the banks are going to use the additional lending capacity that we've provided to them to support small and medium-sized businesses. And thus far, the banks have offered their commitment to be flexible, but we are monitoring the situation very closely. As I've indicated, I've been speaking to many business owners in Moncton, and some people have told me they've received positive assistance and others are concerned, and that information is being passed on to the finance minister. A few other programs as well that we've introduced or initiatives that we've taken. You're all aware that the Bank of Canada cut its interest rate last week to 0.75%. Also, the Office of the Superintendent of Financial Services, or also known as OSFI, has announced $300 billion in lending capacity by major banks. We've also introduced a new business credit availability program to make more than $10 billion available to businesses in financing and credit insurance. Those programs are available through the EDC and BDC, but also through your banks. So your first contact should really be your banks. We've also introduced a 10% wage subsidy for businesses. I've heard from some that have indicated that they certainly hope that that is going to be upped. And again, I'm providing that feedback to the finance minister. With respect to CRA as well, to defer taxes to August 31st for businesses as well. And also we'll continue to provide increased credit for farmers, and that is done through Farm Credit Canada. In closing, we certainly recognize that there's many industries that are being hit very, very hard. And again, I want to stress that the measures that we introduced last week is the first set of measures, as we recognize that there's going to be a long road ahead. We also know that our regional development agencies are going to have a crucial role to play, and we'll continue to monitor the situation very closely. In closing, if I may, I also want to stress that every day, as your member of parliament, we have a regular conference call, actually twice a day. And I've been reaching out, and many employers and business owners have been reaching out to me here and in the community. And it's really important for me to hear firsthand what is going on, what would be helpful to you, because as we move forward with other initiatives, we want to make sure that it meets your needs. So if we can hear from you what your suggestions are, I'll be certain to make sure that I bring that forward to Minister Morneau and to his team. Once again, thank you for joining us today. Thank you, John and Xavier, and I look forward to your questions and also hearing your suggestions how we can move forward to better help people during this very difficult time.
Okay, thank you, Ginette. We'll now move over to Chantal Lepage from Service Canada. Chantal is going to walk us through some of the access points for some of the programs that Ginette mentioned, because I know that's top of mind for many business owners. So Chantal, it's over to you.
What I'll talk today is probably, Ginette spoke about the employer side, so I'll be speaking about what to do or what programs are available for your employees, and as an employer, what you can do to maybe keep some of your employees. So some of the program are the work sharing. So work sharing is, it's due to a temporary layoff, but you don't want to lay off all of your employees. So before the COVID-19, you could have 36 weeks of work sharing. We've extended this to 76 weeks. That is through our Service Canada website or canada.ca that you can apply. I'll provide all of the links and website and phone numbers to John if that is something that isn't of interest for you. And mass layoff. So for those that needs to provide record of employment, that needs to lay off all of their employees or lay off and record of employment. For those that, because the 1-800 for the employer hotline is very, has been used a lot, and sometimes it's very hard to get through it. I would recommend that if you do not have RollWeb, you can register through RollWeb, which is a process. So once you've done it, it's one easy step, and you'll have as much as record of employment that you can. Because I had an example this week, an employer called me, and he was still doing the record of employment by hand, and he didn't have any more. So trying to contact the employer hotline can be very difficult at this moment. So I would recommend for those that do not or is not set up as RoWeb to do so. And you can do that through my Service Canada account or my CRA account. Also, I had some questions on what is the reason of separation that I should put in when you do a record of employment for an employee. So if you have employees that needed to be quarantined or is actually sick, it will be the employee would apply for sickness benefit. The rules as of now, we've waived the waiting period. But still, they need to qualify. They don't need a medical note. The same process as the emergency care benefit under Revenue Canada. We do not need a medical note, but the processing time is still the same as usual. It's still 28 business days before you get an answer. And then if you have employees that needs to be laid off due to the shortage of work, it would be the letter A for shortage of work. If you have an employee that has a partner that is considered essential and they need to stay at home for with the children because they don't have any daycare and they can't find one, the reason of separation would be either quit or leave of absence. Please refrain from putting any comment on the record of employment because it does delay the process. Does it mean that the employee will be refused for unemployment insurance? No. We're still going to do an investigation. We're going to call the employer and see the reason why it was a leave of absence or quit. And if the employee is refused at that time, then it can go under the emergency care benefit because it didn't qualify for employment insurance. And it's kind of hard. So what I'll do, because I'm pretty question and answer, I'll finish with this, and then I'll just answer the questions as good as I can. I know it's a difficult time right now. Service Canada, our Service Canada frontline, we're still there, but we don't do any interaction with client at this moment. We provide applications. So people that do not have unemployment, do not have a computer or do not have access to internet or anything, they can come to our Service Canada and we will provide a paper application. Right now, any questions that are registered through our 1-800 number, we distribute to our citizen service officers, and they call the clients to answer general questions. So as of right now, all of our Service Canada are closed for clients except just to provide paper applications or information, general information about unemployment insurance, Canada pension, and old age. But being essential, as you can see, I'm at the office and I'm trying to answer as much questions that I can from employees that I've been receiving since last week and employers. So hopefully we'll take day by day and we'll go and be able to survive this. So if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. Merci beaucoup et de m'avoir invité.
Thank you.
John.
Okay, thank you very much, Ginette and Chantal. It is now time for the Q&A portion of today's presentation. So if you could find that click button, and several of you already have because the questions have been coming in. If you'd like to pose a question to either presenter. Il est maintenant temps pour les questions et réponses. Veuillez cliquer sur le bouton chat si vous souhaitez poser une question à l'une des présentateurs. So, I'm going to start, since I'm moderator, and get my own question in first. And I guess this one is to Ginette, and it's something that we've been hearing a lot, Ginette, from the small business community. You mentioned quite often that this is phase one of federal assistance. So we assume, I guess, that there might be at least a phase two. One of the pain points that several business owners have told us is the 10% wage subsidy to keep people on the payroll is not enough to really accomplish that goal. And they point to other jurisdictions like the European nations. Denmark, I think, is 75%. Australia just announced this week, I believe it's a $58,000 payment to all small business owners to help them with costs. Do you think there's an opportunity to increase the 10% wage subsidy to something that more attractive?
Thanks, John. As indicated, I've been in touch with many small and medium-sized business owners myself this week and last week, and I'm hearing that feedback as well. Every day we have a conference call and the finance minister's representatives are there, and I've been providing to them that feedback. I think, however, we have to keep in mind when we're comparing ourselves to other countries, though. I know Minister Morneau was on a call yesterday with all the G20 leaders. And in actual fact, when we compare what Canada has put forward compared to other nations, we're really at the higher end. Perhaps not with respect to wage subsidies, but because that we've provided this emergency benefit for people that don't qualify for the unemployment types of benefits, we can see that many individuals are being able to benefit from that to help their employees directly. But with respect to the wage subsidy, I have mentioned it on several occasions. And again, I don't know what is going to be the next phase with respect to the assistance, but it's not only Ginette and Moncton that's mentioning this on the call. There's many other MPs from other areas that are mentioning it as well. And I have to say, the measures that are going to be introduced really are going to be coming from you folks on the ground. You are the experts. You know what that you need to survive and to weather this storm right now. So it's really important that we hear from you. And then from there, I will certainly be advocating and bringing that back to Bill in Ottawa.
Okay, thanks, Ginette. The next question, I may have heard an answer in your comments, Ginette, but I'm going to ask it again just to clarify. Somebody's asking, will there be a deferral for business tax returns and payment?
With respect to income tax, yes, there is. That has been deferred to August 31st of this year. Now, once again, these dates are very fluid. This is where it's at right now. We just don't know how long things are going to be almost on pause because of COVID-19. So decisions are being made at a very rapid speed. For now, that is the date. But again, it could change further down the road if need be.
Mm-hmm. Next question might be a difficult one to answer, but somebody's asking, do credit unions such as Uni fall in the category of major banks? In other words, Bill Morneau has been talking to the major banks about providing some relief. Does that include something like a regional credit union?
Well, we encourage businesses to reach out to their financial institutions that they deal with. I do know that Bill has been in touch with the 6 big banks, but again, we're really encouraging business owners to start initiating contact with their financial institutions they deal with on a regular basis. There's been a lot of additional measures that have been put in place to allow more flexibility to be able to provide additional funding and loans and supports to their customers. But at the end of the day, I know that Bill has been having those direct negotiations with the 6 big ones.
Okay. Next question, will GST, HST, and payroll remittances be deferred?
Very, very good question. And again, I know that speaking to many of you over the past week, that is the one issue that has come up. And again, last night, I can tell you on my call, myself and many MPs have indicated that that is probably one of the #1 things that I'm hearing from business communities. I don't know what is going to be the next phase of the announcements, but we have made it very clear to Minister Morneau that businesses are telling us to keep cash flow is really their priority. And if they could hold off and deferring those payments, that it would certainly allow them to have access to more cash. So that information has been provided to them loud and clear. But again, I can't tell you if that is going to be the next phase or not. I'm not aware of that, but we've certainly made it clear to the finance minister and his officials.
Mm-hmm. We're getting a lot of questions around self-employed people. There's a question here, realtors, commission employees, self-employed, will they be able to take advantage of the EI assistance that's been announced?
With respect to the emergency care and the emergency support benefit, that has been put in place specifically for that category of employees, to be very frank. As I've indicated, there's about 5.5 million Canadians that don't qualify for your traditional EI benefits. Therefore, we wanted to make sure that we had a benefit that was in place that folks would be able to qualify for. So if people were employed, and as a result of COVID-19 are no longer working, then from there, we want them to be able to qualify for these benefits. We've been told that as long as people have worked and have earned $5,000 over the past year, they should qualify for this benefit. Once again, we want to make this process as simple as possible, and we want to make sure that people can get money in their pockets as soon as possible.
Mm-hmm. This is sort of a connected question to what you just said about the $5,000 minimum. Somebody's asking if there's a minimum number of hours that self-employed people need to work in order to be eligible for emergency funds.
Really good question, John. I haven't been told, haven't heard of any minimum hours. It's simply if an individual is working and has earned $5,000 over the past year. That was what I've heard just as of a few days ago. Once again, there's many moving parts here, but we really want to make sure that the benefits that we're putting in place can benefit all Canadians. We want to make it as simple as possible. We want it to make it user-friendly. And the objective is to make sure that we can get money into the hands of Canadians as soon as possible. And these emergency benefits have been put in place to make sure that people who typically don't qualify for EI will be able to qualify for this benefit.
Okay, here's a good one. Would a working business owner who has not been collecting a salary for the past few months qualify for the emergency support benefit if they had to stay at home to care for children and therefore not able to contribute to business growth?
I would say yes. That is really, when you describe that situation, that's really why that we've put in place this type of program to make sure that there is a catch-all for the ones that we've missed. So when I listen to your description, I would say yes, that those individuals would be able to qualify.
Okay. Next question. Is there any concession for additional funds required for a worker that still has their job but needs additional funds for increased costs? And the example is several of our truck drivers need to find alternative accommodations when they are home for their days off because a number of the family might have a compromised immune system. So that's a tough one.
Yeah, it is. I don't know of any measures that have been introduced at all thus far, but once again, as I've indicated, that's why that it's really important for me as your member of parliament to hear from folks on the ground with respect to specific needs that are out there. We need to really be able to consider all of these issues. And so often, until that you're on the ground, you just don't know what people are facing. So the more information that people want to provide to me as your member of parliament as well. Our office, we're all working out of home, but people can still call our office, and within an hour, someone will be in touch with you. If you want to speak to me directly as well, leave a message and I return all of the calls. And if there's any feedback that you want to provide with respect to areas that we should really consider, I really welcome that feedback.
Mm-hmm. Here's a question from a business owner that I've heard a couple of instances of. says it's great that our employees will be covered. However, there's not enough to cover businesses. If you have a loan, it can be topped up. However, no new loans, and not enough is being given to increase lines of credits by the big banks. I know Bill Morneau has spoken to the big six. Are they getting the message that there needs to be an adequate amount of flexibility?
Well, with respect to the measures that we've put in place, with respect to all the work that OSFI has done, they certainly have what it needs to provide more flexibility and more loans and guarantees to people. I know that with respect to Minister Morneau as well, we are looking at being able to ensure these loans as well, or secure those loans as well. So we are doing, the work that needs to be done to make sure that the banks, receive the message loud and clear. We are in this all together. We all have a role to play, and the banks have a big role to play here as well. And we are expecting them to be there with us side by side in order to help, small and medium-sized businesses and all Canadians during this really tough time.
Mm-hmm. Okay, there's a couple of questions for Chantal here. The first one is, I believe ROE Web requires an authorization code for first-time users. I understand the code is mailed to the corporation. Could this step be waived to speed up the process?
Not at the moment. We haven't had any new procedures. I know that it can take up to 30 days. We haven't heard any guidelines or any update if they're going to waive that, unfortunately. But I can maybe inquire to see if they've changed the process and let you know, John.
Okay. This one is maybe both a Chantal and Ginette question. Is there a single page that the federal government is pointing businesses to for direction and guidance? What is the best resource for us to point business towards the right information?
So maybe what I can do, John, after this webinar, I can send you a few links that we've been providing to Canadians and to business owners. I can do that, and then from there you'll be able to send it to all of your members, if that's okay. Mm-hmm. And also, as soon as more shareables become available, we'll also be putting them out on our social media platforms. But there are a few good links for all of the programs that have been announced or listed. But again, there's some of these programs, they're just fine-tuning kind of the details. So they're changing rapidly as well. But I'll certainly be able to provide you with the list of links and contacts.
Okay. Here's an interesting question. Somebody's looking ahead to the summer. Is there a plan for students? We may not be able to hire them. Thus, they will not have the income for university next year.
It's a very, very good question, and that has come up. We know that we have different student programs that are available out there, but let's be frank, they probably won't even qualify for the jobs because if the agencies aren't open. Mm-hmm. So once again, when it comes to post-COVID-19 plans, those are the types of conversations that are ongoing. Right now, our priority, though, is to make sure that people have food on their table and can keep their lights on and have a roof over their head. We're encouraging people to self-isolate, to stay home. Therefore, we have to make sure that for now that they have that their basic needs are met. And then from there, we're going to have to, transition into the next phase. So there's going to be many phases as a result of the outcomes of COVID-19.
Mm-hmm. This one could be either a Ginette or Chantal one. It's pretty specific. Are employers able to start taking the 10% wage subsidy immediately? CRA has put out all the information and instructs to deduct the calculated amount from source deduction remittances, but also says, quote, more to come in respect to reporting. So it sounds like the program's still a little bit in development.
I don't know if Chantal, if you have any comments on that.
Because it's administered by Revenue Canada, I would probably recommend that you call Revenue Canada. It's not under our jurisdiction, so it's a very good question.
Mm-hmm.
John,
Go ahead, Ginette.
What I can commit to, John, I don't have the answer to that question, but what I can do, I can get back to you with respect to that this afternoon, get in touch with some folks. And then from there, if you want to send an email to your members, we'll be able to get you that answer.
Okay. Here's a question that we hear often as well. I own a retail store that is set up as a corporation and I'm a shareholder. I have to close. Do I qualify for the emergency support or benefit programs?
Once again, I would say yes, but I'd have to get back in touch with the specific of that. I believe so, but once again, if you provide me again with the contact information, we'll be able to get you a precise answer.
Okay. I should mention that today's webinar is being recorded, so we'll be posting it online so people can refer back. Next question. I understand the figure that Madame Petitpas Taylor provided, the $5,000 Canadian threshold for self-employed or workers. However, oftentimes we deal with new Canadians who have been here for a while and have had no chance yet to gain traction, hours, and income. And actually there was a piece on CBC this morning that talked about emergency support for immigrants. Is the government doing anything specific in that area to address that?
Once again, it's a really good question, and a question that has come up with respect to my caucus colleagues. With respect to new immigrants, if they're permanent residents, they will be able to qualify for the services that are available. If these individuals worked in different areas, regardless if they qualify for EI or not, they would still qualify for the emergency support benefits or the emergency care benefit as long as they were employed before COVID-19 and met the $5,000 threshold. We do, however, know that we have some individuals. I spoke to a business owner yesterday that gave me a scenario that he had some temporary foreign workers that arrived in Moncton 3 weeks ago, and they only worked 4 shifts. Therefore, they technically would not qualify for this emergency support or emergency care benefit. And what are we going to do to help them? Again, that's why it's important for me to be able to speak to, the frontline business owners to bring this back, because I would have never thought of that scenario. But we're trying to kind of manage and to navigate what we can right now and to get people the money that they need as quick as possible. There may be some gaps, some situations that we're missing, but we are certainly doing the best that we can to meet the needs of most Canadians or most people that are living in our country right now.
Mm-hmm. Here's a fairly straightforward question. The benefits for individuals, GST, child benefit, etc. for May, is this something that needs to be applied for, or will they be provided automatically?
Really good question. They're provided automatically. These are people that have already qualified for the benefits. And as I've indicated during my comments, and I know I talk a lot and I talk fast, so my apologies, but with respect to the monies that we're sending out to Canadians, we wanted to use pre-existing programs as much as possible. And these are programs that we knew people, qualified for and were registered for. These are low and modest income Canadians, and we want to make sure that they will have access to those funds. And that's why that we've utilized those existing programs. So they don't have to qualify, they don't have to reapply for them. That's one program that they will get automatically. And the other one as well is the Canada Student Loan Program, the federal portion. People don't have to contact anyone. The payments are just going to be stopped and deferred for 6 months, interest-free.
Next question, re the 10% wage subsidy. Early information was that this would be available for CCPCs, nonprofits, charities. Any clarification on whether or not those who operate as sole proprietors or partnerships also qualify?
Now, my understanding with respect to the top-up, not-for-profit agencies, registered charities qualify, Canadian-controlled private corporations, and the thing as well that people have to have an existing business number and payroll program account with CRA, and they had to have those numbers prior to March of 2020. Sole proprietors, I've asked for clarification with respect to that, and I'm waiting for a response because that question came up yesterday when I was speaking to a few business owners. So once again, as soon as I get the response, John, I'll forward you the response and you'll be able to send it to your members.
Okay. Got some new questions coming in. If an employer has no online ROE account and has to wait up to 30 days before getting set up online through ROE Web, can the employee start his EI claim without the ROE in hand to speed up the process? If not, any suggestions on what employees should do if they need to lay off, employers should do if they need to lay off the employees now?
Employees should apply as soon as possible, even though we require those documents to process a claim, to get it started, to accelerate the process. From their last day of work, they should apply. And then that's why the 28 days of service standard. Then we get the paperwork afterward, and then we do the calculation. Why we require record of employment once an employee is laid off is we have the automated system where the computer does the calculation without seeing any human being or any processing from an agent from Service Canada. And sometimes they'll get calculated in 5 minutes. I've seen that before. But if an employer cannot provide a record of employment once they've laid off their employee, they should recommend to their employee to apply right away, even though they don't have the paperwork.
Okay, I guess.
And then if it's an urgent matter, I would recommend maybe the employer, in the meantime, while they register through RoWeb, to call the employer line from Service Canada and explain the situation, and they might be able to send paper applicant or paper roll in that case.
Okay, that I guess leads to maybe a bigger question that we've heard a lot from a lot of business owners. Obviously, you know, Chantal, you're declared essential, I guess, and you're at the office right now, but it's the whole ability of the, this is a question for either of you, the whole ability of government to respond as quickly as possible to all the requests that are coming in, whether it's EI or other programs. Either one of you can answer. Is there any kind of hope or plan that we could speed up the process since the needs are immediate?
Yeah, just a few comments with respect to that, John. That's why that we really are having all hands on deck right now when it comes to the federal government with respect to all of the departments, to make sure that we do all that we can to do just that, to make sure that we can get money in the hands of Canadians as soon as possible. I know with respect to the emergency care program and the emergency support benefits, we're really hoping that in mid-April, people are going to be able to have access to those funds. We're working as diligently as possible. Our public servants are amazing, and they've got a big load right now as well. But we want to make sure that people can get access to those funds. And again, repeating myself a bit, but that's why that we're utilizing pre-existing programs as well to make sure that they will be able to get the funds in a very, very timely fashion. At the end of the day, what I'm hearing, people need access to cash now. They can't wait. And that is the message that we've been bringing back to Bill and his team, and they get it. It's just to make sure that we can find, the way to get it there in a timely fashion.
Mm-hmm. One more question here. Somebody's asking about working capital assistance for new entrepreneurs. I assume that would be, is that what the BDC program is primarily about? Or?
Yeah, correct. But also we're encouraging people, again, not just through BDC, but to also get in touch with their financial institutions that they deal with. You know what I mean? They have access to an awful lot of tools there as well. But we've certainly provided additional service funding to BDC.
Okay, just scrolling down to see if we have I think we have one new message. Just bear with me. Hi Chantal, I called the ROE Web support telephone number last evening and received an auto message saying they could not take any calls at this time. I understand it's a very busy time, but at least we should be able to wait in a queue. So maybe that's a process question for the call center.
It's a good question. we're trying to work with the resources that we have. I understand completely where you're coming from, either phone numbers or sometimes the system will just jam up. Just as of this week, we've had almost 1 million applications for employment insurance, where usually we have an average of 33,000. So it's if I could say what I wanted to say, I might lose my job, so I'm not going to say what I want to say. Just be patient. Keep on trying to call the 1-800 number. In the meantime, like Madame Ginette Petitpas Taylor said, if you can do it online, or if you're able to do it anything online, please do so. Because it's changing every day, every hour, I receive email from a different department or procedures that evolves as the time goes, and we're trying to manage that too. We might be able to have a setup where, let's say that I'm a citizen specialist, but I also help at the front end. I might do next week processing, because we've been asked to be on our qui vive and be ready to help as much as we can, even though we're not trained to do that. So just be patient. If you can do everything, or if you're able to do anything online, I would recommend that. And as the day goes by, if any changes comes in, let's say that the processing time is less than 30 days, I'll let you know. The same for unemployment insurance, but we're in my hands are attached as everybody else. So, yeah.
I think
Sorry for that.
No, it's okay.
I wish I could.
When you normally get 33,000 EI claims a week and you get 1 million, and more than half of your staff is at home, we understand the math doesn't quite work. So we appreciate all that you're doing and your people. I think that's the last question we have. So I really want to thank both Ginette and Chantal for being with us today. I know both of them are, as you can tell, are really busy just trying to get their jobs done and get us the information that we need to cope. And I want everyone on the call to know that the Chamber will continue to communicate heavily with you during the pandemic, and we are lobbying every day to all 3 levels of government on your behalf. Je tiens vraiment à remercier Ginette et Chantal d'avoir pris le temps d'être avec nous aujourd'hui. And our next webinar, I should tell you, is this Thursday, tomorrow. It's starting at 10 o'clock. It's on the topic of people and productivity during the pandemic. It will feature 2 HR experts, Carolyn Watson and Jennifer Kickert, who will speak about how do you keep your employees engaged and productive while they work remotely from home. And you can sign up for that, the free webinar, on our website, ccgm.ca. Just know that, as our economy and business community continues to be impacted by COVID-19, we'll continue to look for other information sessions to help you survive this unprecedented time. I know the province announced some measures last night involving NB Power bills and some loan support for businesses and some emergency funding. So we'll be getting that information out today. Veuillez continuer à nous parler de vos préoccupations et de vos besoins. I want to thank Ginette. I want to thank Chantal. Xavier, thanks for setting this up. Thanks for everybody on the call. Merci encore de voir participer aujourd'hui. Stay safe and take care. Bye for now.